Do you know what fucks me off? Before I was ill, and I took a couple of weeks off, crickets, nothing, fuck all coming out of the gaming world. I had to review Time Rift to have, something to make a video on. No disrespect to Time Rift, it was a good game. Yeah, as soon as I'm completely wrecked, so much shit going on. Anyway, there's a number of different videos I could have made on a number of different topics, but I decided coming back, the first thing I wanted to talk about was PlayStation, Sony, and the waves that are being made over there. It feels like we're right on the precipice now of some big stuff. We got the official announcement of the long-awaited Project Spartacus, aka PlayStation Game Pass. But they've been intentionally vague about certain aspects of it, and we'll get into that. But also there's been a couple of leaks and rumours floating around that all kind of seem to be pointing in the same direction. Plus, if you are thinking about picking up that premium package that we're going to talk about, then you might already have it, and for much cheaper than the new asking price. But we're going to get into all of that on today's episode of
Amateur YouTuber tries to keep on top of the latest shit whilst also maintaining his full-time job, his band, and his mental health.
13.7 billion years ago, there was the Big Bang, and then there was Xbox Game Pass. As we're all aware, Xbox Game Pass is fucking dynamite. It's an absolutely essential thing to subscribe to if you can afford it. The value for money is just incredible. There's some shite on there, but most of it is really, really good. There's a lot of brilliant games on there too, including AAA titles that drop on day one, as in they land on Xbox Game Pass the day that they're released, in case that wasn't clear. It's the kind of thing that 10 years ago I imagine would have been laughed out of a boardroom had it been suggested. Now on the surface, we have Xbox to thank for it. Obviously, it's Xbox Game Pass. But also, we have Sony to thank for it. Because whether Xbox would admit it or not is one thing, but Xbox Game Pass is clearly a product of the fact that Sony absolutely fucking flattened Xbox in the last generation of consoles. So much so that a drastic change to the Xbox business model needed to be made in order to reclaim some of the ground that had been lost between them and Sony. Something that could only really be done by a company with as much money as Microsoft. That is, paying publishers excessive amounts of cash to feature their big AAA titles on Game Pass, and also buying out some of the world's biggest third-party developers to come and become first-party developers for Xbox, essentially cornering the market. So not only can Xbox offer you the fantastic service that Game Pass is now, but soon in the future, some of the world's biggest franchises are going to be available exclusively on Xbox Game Pass, that being Activision Games and Games by Bethesda, the two big acquisitions that were made by Xbox over the last couple of years. And with the endlessly deep pockets of Microsoft, this would only get worse for Sony without a prompt and timely response. Step forward, Project Spartacus, PlayStation's long-rumoured and recently confirmed answer to Xbox Game Pass. Well, firstly, it's not called Project Spartacus, it's not even getting a new name. This thing is just going to be called PlayStation Plus. This is the new version of PlayStation Plus. So there'll be 3 tiers available for this thing at launch. There's going to be Essential, Extra, and Premium. Essential is basically the PS Plus that we have now. It includes online play, cloud storage, free monthly games, and exclusive discounts. And this is going to cost you $6.99 a month in the UK, $19.99 quarterly, or $49.99 yearly. Extra is all of the above, plus a catalogue of 400 downloadable PlayStation 4 and 5 games from first and third party studios, and that's going to cost you $10.99 a month, or $31.99 quarterly, or $83.99 yearly. Now, Premium is the one that's got me most excited, but of course, it's going to cost you a fair bit of money. It's going to bleed my wallet dry. Coming in at $13.49 monthly, $39.99 quarterly, or $99.99 yearly. Yes, £100 per year. That will get you all of the above, so the standard PlayStation Plus content, plus the 400 game catalogue of PS4 and PS5 games, plus an additional 340 games, which is made up of PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, and PlayStation Portable titles. Now, it's worth noting that the PlayStation 3 games from this catalogue will be only available to stream. You won't be able to download them onto your system. I don't know why. I don't know what the deal is with PS3 games, but for some reason these games will not run on PlayStation 4s or PlayStation 5s. Not without doing full ports, and it's just not going to happen. Too much work for them. So PS3 games going to be streamed, which is a little bit disappointing. But guys, PS1 games, PS2 games, PSP games, and then a bunch of PS4 and PS5 games are going to be able to be downloaded and played on your PlayStation 5. This is massive. How long have PlayStation fans been crying out for some form of backwards compatibility? Finally, we're going to be able to play PlayStation 1 classics on the PlayStation 5 and PlayStation 2 classics on the PlayStation 5. I am fucking buzzed about this. Now, while all of this seems very exciting, they've also been very vague. And when I say vague, I mean they've told us how much it's going to cost, but we've got no fucking idea what games are going to be in those catalogues. And you know what else? It's only this fucking industry that we see stuff like this. Like, here's what you're paying, get excited about it, but we're not going to tell you what you're paying for. What if it's 400 games like Life of Black Tiger? Yes, this is a fucking PS4 game that Sony allowed to be released. Are you fucking high? Look at this. It's giving me an idea for a video, actually. Anyway, yeah, the point I'm making is that confirming Project Spartacus is great, and giving us the price points is useful to some degree, but ultimately we can't know whether this thing is worth the price points without knowing what games are going to be on it, without knowing what it is we're going to be paying for. But based on those very same price points and some things that Jim Ryan said in a recent podcast, we can make an educated guess about the quality or the standard of games that we should be expecting to land in these catalogues. So yeah, Jim Ryan was pressed about this week on the official PlayStation podcast, and whilst he did keep things kind of close to his chest, he also said bits. So the first thing he talks about is a bit of background info on the decision to exclude first-party PlayStation titles landing on day one to the new PlayStation Plus. Now, whilst this wasn't expressly stated in the blog post, it was kind of obvious because they included that there would be timed game trials for premium subscribers. This is similar to what EA Play offers. It'll be something like certain new games will allow premium subscribers to play 6 or 10 hours or so of the game before they make a decision as to whether they want to actually purchase it. And of course, the thing that people are going to jump on pretty quickly is that Xbox does offer this service. Xbox does allow you to play its first-party titles the day that they're released on Xbox Game Pass. So Jim Ryan basically talks about the good place that Sony first-party studios are currently in. He goes on to talk about how the success of the games has created what he describes as a virtuous cycle, which allows them to pump more money into their studios to therefore create bigger and better games with, you know, more beautiful worlds, better narratives, etc. And then in turn, those games are successful and therefore create more revenue for Sony, which they then feed back into creating even bigger and even better games. And you know, this is exactly why it doesn't really come as a surprise to me that this is the stance that PlayStation are taking with the new PlayStation Plus. I mean, is it disappointing from a selfish point of view? Yes, but I do kind of reluctantly understand what is being said here in terms of, you know, if you compare, and I'm not trying to be fucking disrespectful or like try to slate on Xbox, but if you compare Xbox first party titles, Gears of War, Halo, Forza, they're good games, but The Last of Us, God of War, Marvel Spider-Man, Horizon, Uncharted, these are all series that are amongst the best games in the world right now, and the money generated from the sales of these games is what allows Sony to cycle a lot of that money back into further titles of this caliber and beyond. Remember, Sony's pockets are deep, but they're like fucking Action Man pockets when compared to the pockets of Microsoft. That's why Microsoft are able to lose money on their first party titles for decades if they have to make Game Pass work. Sony don't have that option. Now, one thing that was omitted from the conversation with Jim Ryan that he didn't touch on was whether we would see third party titles arriving day one on PlayStation Plus. Now, obviously, we're going to see third-party titles on there. But what I'm saying is, will we be seeing those third-party titles landing on PlayStation Plus day one, the day of release? Jim Ryan did go on to say that there's massive publisher involvement in the program, and what may have gone unnoticed is that PlayStation have quietly already been toying with day one third-party releases. Remember when Fall Guys was released and everyone went crazy for it? Well, that was a day one third-party release as a free game on PlayStation Plus. Oddworld Soulstorm, again, the same thing, another day one release that dropped on PlayStation Plus. Destruction All-Stars was another. Now, I know these aren't exactly big, groundbreaking third-party titles. I mean, Destruction All-Stars was a dog shite of a game. But nonetheless, it shows that this is something that Sony have been moving towards for a while. Last month we got Shadow Warrior 3 drop day one on PlayStation Now, which is probably the biggest one of them all. I mean, it's not huge or anything, but as Sony ramps up with this big new project that they've been working on, would it not be reasonable to suggest that this model that they've already been testing out would ramp up alongside it? I mean, why would they stop now? And when you think about the relationships that Sony have with some huge publishers, this could be a really exciting move for PlayStation Plus. Games like Control, Monster Hunter, Devil May Cry, Kingdom Hearts, Borderlands, these were all games that released with some form of PlayStation exclusivity. And you know, that could be some kind of indication of the caliber of third-party day one releases that we could potentially expect to see on PlayStation Plus, because Sony have always been serious about snatching up some of the world's biggest third-party titles on either timed or permanent exclusivity for their consoles. So if they're serious about PlayStation Plus and this seriously being a contender to Xbox Game Pass, then snatching them up for exclusive sales may just transfer into snatching these games up for day one releases on PlayStation Plus. Anyway, I've spent a lot of time talking about day one exclusivity on PlayStation Plus, but there's a catalogue of 400 PS4 and PS5 games coming. So, you know, what's probably more significant is talking about what kind of games we can expect to be in that catalogue. Well, obviously we're going to see a lot of Sony's first party back catalogue. In the blog post, Sony revealed that Death Stranding, God of War, Marvel Spider-Man Miles Morales, Mortal Kombat 11 and Returnal will all feature in the catalogue at launch. I imagine this will also be joined by many more older first party titles. I'd be surprised not to see the Uncharted series on there and the Last of Us series on there, but this is obviously going to need to be bolstered by other titles, by third-party titles as well. And that's where I hark back to what I said earlier about Sony having some incredibly strong relationships with some of the biggest publishers in the world. For example, Sony have a great relationship with Capcom, meaning we could see titles from the Resident Evil series, Monster Hunter, Street Fighter and so on, Square Enix too, Final Fantasy titles, Kingdom Hearts, etc. Sony have all the links here to really make this a serious contender to Game Pass with this catalogue, but ultimately it's up to them now. And they better not fucking let us down. Now, acquisitions. Acquisitions is apparently the new fucking thing in the video game world. It's a fucking balls of steel off between Microsoft and Sony over who can buy up the biggest share in the video game marketplace. The answer is Microsoft in terms of cold hard cash. The other answer is PlayStation in terms of reputation. Now, in that same PlayStation podcast, Jim Ryan talks about how acquisitions are still in the works. He touches on the Bungie acquisition, and he also talks about how new acquisitions are currently in the process of becoming a reality. Now, since that podcast, over the last few days, and I'm not sure if the two are actually related or if it's just a coincidence timing wise, but there's been a lot of bubbling under the surface, rumours flying about that PlayStation are about to announce a big acquisition from a major gaming company, and the name on everybody's lips is Konami. Oh my fucking god, we're here again. Now, for me, a dreamer, this makes total fucking sense. Serious sense. Let's not forget, this rumour isn't anything new. The Konami and Sony link is something that's just been bubbling and churning away under the surface for like, I don't know, 3 years or more maybe now. Be it that PlayStation Studios are working on a Silent Hill game, or Blue Point are working on a Metal Gear Solid remake. Some of the most credible sources in video game leaks have been talking about this Konami Sony link for literally years now. It was even rumoured about a year or so ago that this acquisition was something that was happening, that Sony had put in an offer to buy out Konami, and nobody bought it. Everyone was like, no fucking way, Konami are not going to sell up. But much like every other Konami related rumour, it was never proven nor debunked, just silence. Radio fucking silence. You'd have thought that somebody by now would have come forward from either Sony or Konami and just said, look, this is all bullshit, and just laid the rumours to rest. You'd think so, wouldn't you? Unless, of course, they can all be substantiated. Because just when you thought that, nah, this is obviously bollocks now, we would have heard something by now, it's just been way too long, we get this. The announcement of the new PlayStation Plus, something that Jim Ryan himself confirmed has been in the work for years, with some of the world's biggest publishers getting on board. And all of a sudden, the radio silence makes perfect sense. Because if Sony have been planning this for years, then it does make sense why these leaks and rumours would get out. They can't just keep this thing completely secret. Some people must know about this thing happening. But at the same time, saving the Konami acquisition announcement to be revealed alongside this new PlayStation Plus is a bombshell reminiscent of the Xbox Bethesda bombshell a couple of years ago. Think about it, that announcement, Konami is becoming a PlayStation studio, all of these great Konami games from their back catalogue are now going to be available on the brand new PlayStation Plus catalogue, and also all of those games that have been rumoured to be in the works are actually happening. We're getting a new Silent Hill, we're getting a Metal Gear Solid remake, we're getting new Castlevania games, and they're all going to be available exclusively on PlayStation Plus. This is the exact kind of thing that has made Game Pass so enticing, and this is the exact kind of thing that PlayStation need to be doing in order to capture that market. You know, every few months there's a fresh rumbling of something Sony and Konami related, whether it be, you know, a new Silent Hill game, the Metal Gear Solid remake, that fucking abandoned shite, whatever that was. And I always take the fucking bait, and I always back it up by saying, well, look, all of this evidence is pointing in that direction, but never have I been vindicated. But surely this time, surely this time, I can't be the only one that thinks there's just been too much said, too many potential leaks, too many cryptic fucking posts and subliminal messaging, and way too much silence, either confirming or denying anything, for there to be absolutely nothing going on, right? Anyway, the other thing Sony seems to be ramping up towards that's not specifically tied to PlayStation Plus, like there's nothing to suggest that the two have anything to do with each other, but the timing being side by side is potentially a little bit sus. Anyway, it's this rumour that Sony is about to announce an event of some sort to show off the PlayStation VR2. We know that Sony pretty heavily showed off the PSVR2 to companies at GDC a couple of weeks back, so that would suggest that this thing is ready to go. Now, PSVR1 wasn't a flop by any stretch, it actually sold pretty well, but at the same time it wasn't really a big success, at least not in the way that Sony talk about PlayStation VR2 being, and how much they're wanting to get out of this and how much they're wanting to give players with it. It's always difficult to get something like this off the ground because you need to make enough sales of the product to make it worthwhile for developers to invest money into creating games that are specifically created for the product. But of course, in order to make those sales, you need developers to have created good games to play on the product, so it becomes a cyclical thing. Now, there are a lot of good games out there for the PlayStation VR. The problem is, it costs quite a bit to get your hands on one, and then if you want to buy all the good games for it too, we're talking like a good few £100s of expenditure before you're really going to feel like the PSVR was worth your while. An amount of money that people are probably unlikely to want to pay, especially for an older product that's about to become outdated by the PlayStation VR 2. So I'm thinking that alongside the PSVR 2 announcement, that we might see a number of those 400 games from the PS4 and PS5 catalogue being VR games. It make perfect sense as a carrot to dangle before people who are struggling with the decision of whether PSVR is worth it for them, because unlike with the PSVR1, this time all you're going to need is the headset, because there's already a library of VR games waiting for you on PlayStation Plus. It seems to me like the intelligent way to get more people on board with the concept, which down the line will hopefully drive more revenue into being able to create bigger and better PlayStation VR experiences. Like I said, there's no leaks or anything to substantiate this claim, it's just the way that I see it going. Anyway, we haven't even touched on the 340 games that come with Premium, the so-called Legacy Collection of PS1, PS2, PS3 and PSN titles. Now, I could talk about that all night long, but it's 2:15 in the morning, and if I continue, this video is going to end up being like, 40 minutes long or something ridiculous. So I think I'm going to save that for another video. But before I go, if you've made it to the end of this video, I just want to let you in on a little bit of knowledge. So if you are thinking about picking up PlayStation Plus Premium when it comes out, there may be a chance that you will already have it. So if you are a yearly subscriber to PlayStation Now, then when PlayStation Plus comes out, your account will be transferred across to a PlayStation Plus Premium account for the remainder of your yearly subscription to PlayStation Now. Unfortunately, when this first went live, there was a loophole because PlayStation hadn't yet taken down the yearly subscriptions to PlayStation Now, so people were able to buy PlayStation Now subscriptions for $49.99 for the year, knowing full well that in June that would turn into a PlayStation Plus Premium account. But PlayStation have since caught on and shut that down. But if you already had one, or if you did manage to get one, then you are in for up to a whole year of PlayStation Plus Premium for half the price. So yeah. Anyway, that's it for today. If you think I've missed anything, please leave a comment below. Thank you for the continued support. Please leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next one.